In the first 3 steps of the program, we have experienced a change in attitudes. We have worked in the first 3 steps to develop within our own selves a more positive concept of who we are. It's extremely important that we really concentrate and work on the first 3 steps in order to fully understand and develop a positive concept of self. Only in developing this positive concept are we now ready to begin the journey of the 4th step and the 5th step. In this tape, we now will look at how to develop a knowledge, a healthy, beautiful concept of ourself. The 12 steps are geared towards teaching us different elements and different concepts of life. In the 4th step, we concentrate and work on the beautiful areas of self-knowledge. Who am I? Who is this gift? Who is this person? In this step, we now begin to inventory our life. The step says to make a fearless moral inventory of your life. Remember the words of this step. It says to make a fearless moral inventory. And that means this inventory must be made without fear and without guilt. It must be made with an open mind so that we may grow and learn and discover from it. Also in the 4th step, we understand that it's an inventory. It's a chance for us to be able to go back and look at ourselves. It's an opportunity to begin to experience our history, to begin to understand who we are. Unfortunately, because of our dysfunctional situations in life, so many of us have been trying for years and years to forget our history, to forget our past. The program teaches us not to forget. It teaches us to forgive, to release, to heal, to let go. But also the program teaches us to embrace our past, to look at it, and to learn from it and discover from it. To begin to realize that it truly is our teacher, that it is an opportunity for each and every one of us to begin to realize that we do have a history, and that our history is our journey, and how important it is for all of us to look at that history through positive eyes. So in the first 3 steps of the program, we develop those positive eyes, and now with a positive set of eyes, with a positive direction, let us now begin to journey into our inventory, into our self-discovery. As we begin our inventory in the infinite wisdom of the 12-step program, they also know us very well. So the steps tells us to sit down with pencil and paper and to write our history. The writing is extremely important because, unfortunately, what we do to ourselves and our minds is that we make things much more complicated than what they really are. And that's why it's important to clear our mind and to put everything on paper. So for us, it becomes a very concrete situation. For codependence and doing our inventory, one of the things that we tend to do, and it's part of our nature in coming from dysfunctional families. So many of us want to do our inventory first, before we even work the first 3 steps. Why? Because we are used to taking inventory. We are used to dwelling on our past. We are used to looking at all the negative things that have happened to us in our life. We are used to looking for what's wrong. That's why in doing a 4th step for codependence, we ask you please to look at yourself through a different set of eyes and through a different perspective. We ask you in the 4th step, as you write your inventory, not to sit down and look at all the garbage that goes on inside of you, not to look at the past in such a negative way, but to use the inventory as a positive growth process, to continue this positive journey and this positive discovery of who we are as persons. Let me share with you a simple little story that might help you to understand the 4th step and the inventory process. Years ago, I had the opportunity of doing many fourth and fifth steps with people. In the days of before, what I would do, people would arrive at my front door, and they would bring their written fourth step inventory. They would then take it and dump it on me. At the end of their visit, I basically had all their garbage. They walked out, they felt better. I felt miserable. The purpose of the fourth step is not to dump garbage. It's to recycle it. It's to change it. It's to experience the newness and the growth from it. After all, it is our history, our garbage. It is the things that have happened to us in the course of our life. And it's up to us to own it, to look at it, and to use it as the fertilizer that will help the new plant, the new person within us, to grow to our potential and grow to our beauty. In the fourth step, we also look at kind of an analogy, a simple analogy. Back in 1968, I was driving home from North Philadelphia. And as I passed a street corner, I saw something. I pulled up in my car. I was at the corner of 6th and Spring Garden. On that corner, they had just finished demolishing an old building. Something caught my fancy, caught my eye. So I stopped the car, I got out, and I looked. I went into this big empty lot, and what amazed me was that right in the middle of this lot, there was a tree growing. I guess what fascinated me was, how did that tree get there? Why would they plant a tree if they were just going to build another building? And then finally it dawned on me. That tree probably had been growing deep down inside underneath the factory, and its roots had been there probably for years and years and years. Finally, when they demolished the factory, broke the concrete, opened it up, all of a sudden, the beauty, the strength, and the power of those roots came alive. When the tree saw sunlight, it started to grow. I use this as an analogy because in each and every one of us, there is that inner child, that special little part of us that has been waiting and waiting and waiting. It's just waiting for each and every one of us to release it, to open it, to break the concrete. And the more we are able to let go of, the more we are able to release the negative things inside of us, the more we give ourselves permission to begin to discover the beautiful, positive person that we have inside. And yet, it's up to us to give ourselves that permission. In the fourth step, we literally give ourselves permission to begin to open up a whole new dimension, a whole new concept of ourself as a person. In this step, we actually begin the process of affirming, of growing, and of developing the beautiful, positive person within. So when we asked a codependent to do an inventory, we asked you to look at it from a totally different perspective. We asked you now to sit down and to begin to dream, to begin to look at the potential and the beauty of what's possible inside of you. As you do your inventory, sit down and do not dwell or go back over the past, but sit down and dare to dream what you want and what could be. For example, sit down with a pencil and paper and simply write and develop on paper your perfect family. Go back and recreate on paper the mother you always wanted, the dad you always wanted. Go back and recreate the environment, the family. Go back and recreate the love, the energy, the things that you always wanted in that little child of yours. And dare to give yourself permission to look and put down on paper your dreams, the things you've always wanted in life. Now, many people, when I tell them this, say to me, "But why am I doing this? This is simply fantasy. It's not real." That's not true. You see, one of the things that we have to do to get out of our negative self is to begin to open up inside of us the potential and the positive. And so in this inventory, we asked you to create, to actually sit down and write and become creative, to begin to open up the creative juices inside of you, to begin to realize that, yes, these are my needs, and on paper to begin to create and develop that healthy, beautiful concept of me, to begin to see who I can be, to begin to reconstruct and develop my healthy family. As I put this on paper, something very special will happen to me. I will begin for the first time to open up inside of myself feelings. I will find myself crying. I will find myself actually longing and hoping and searching for all the very basic needs and the very basic wants and the things that I need in my life. You see, I am a child. I have a gift inside of me. These are my needs. What's so important in the fourth step is that we give ourselves permission, outright permission, to basically identify and look at our needs. You see, in our lives, we have been so used to always identifying what we did not have. Now we have to begin to identify what are our needs, our developments, the things that we want, the directions we want to go in. And as we create these individuals, and as we create this family, and as we create this environment, all of a sudden what we are doing is we are giving ourselves permission to reparent, to redevelop, and to reconstruct our little child. You see, try to understand something which is so basic in every one of us. Our little child has been wanting for a long period of time. And again, that little child wants the very basic things every one of us, every human being in this world wants. That little child wants to be in an environment where it can be nurtured. It wants to be in an environment where it can be loved. It wants to be in an environment where it can feel safe. It wants to be in an environment where it can cry, where it can hurt, where it can celebrate, and where it can play. And we as individuals and as persons in recovery have the responsibility to reparent our little child, to give ourselves permission to become our own parents, to begin to go out and get our needs met. Now, of course, you will not be able maybe to create the mom and dad you always wanted, nor will you be able to go back and make people become what you want them to become. But just by writing this composition, by writing this inventory, what I am doing is I am basically identifying the things I need in my life. My need to be nurtured and my need to be loved. In the first 3 steps of the program, we emphasize, as we talked about the development of a positive, healthy family. In that family structure now, we can take our inventory and we can begin to get our needs met. You see, all of a sudden, what am I doing? I am beginning now to discover knowledge of myself. I'm beginning to understand the things that I lack. I'm beginning to understand the things I want to work on in my life, the things I want to develop. I cannot spend my life dwelling and just beating myself to death over the past. What I am learning in the 4th step is that this is my inventory. This is my potential. These are the things that I need to work on to develop in the course of my life. And so now what I do is I give myself permission to begin my reparenting process. Remember that you are 50% of your mom and 50% of your dad by your creation. And instead of dwelling on the negative aspects of life, take those parts of you, your male and your female self, and develop them and let them move to their potential. As you begin to dream, you also will begin to realize your gifts, your talents, the potential that you have inside of you. Inventory your teenage years, your young adult years. Inventory all the years of your life. Sit down and dare to dream, to recreate them, to go back and look at what was missing, to go back and look at the things that you need in the course of your own growth. Realize that that little child inside of you may have been waiting for years to begin to be released. So many of us have experienced in the course of our life, we have experienced our little child. For some of us, that little child is abused. For some of us, that little child is empty. For some of us, that little child is ashamed. For some of us, that little child is deprived. For some of us, that little child is scared. For some of us, that little child is afraid to open itself up. For some of us, that little child is in terror. For some of us, that little child is burnt out, tired, and exhausted. For some of us, that little child has been so responsible and so good that it's basically worn itself out. Each of us has our own little child. Each of us has our own needs and our own directions. What is so important is that each of us will begin now to look at those things and begin to repair them, to begin to develop them, and to begin to give ourselves permission to release and give that child permission to heal and permission to grow. As a result of our dysfunctionality, so many of us have never learned how to celebrate, how to play, how to be little children, how to experience the gift of life, how to be able to look at life through the eyes of a child. There's a little analogy I share with you that basically all of us probably have experienced and gone through. Each of us, when we came into this world as a little child, a simple little child, a beautiful little child. And that very special little child as we came into this world is who we were. As we began to experience the world and the things around us, that child of ours began to change, and it took on a new personality. I often describe that new personality as the personality of a camel. So many of us, as we grew up, as we became, in quotation marks, adults, so many of us developed in our lives the personality of a camel, the beast of burden. So many of us weighed ourselves down. We developed all types of things on top of us, all types of garbage, all types of craziness. We basically wore ourselves out. And we walked around tired and exhausted. We walked around carrying the world on our shoulders. And many of us became that beast of burden. And for many of us, we played that role, and we played it, and we played it. And for some of us, we played it for years, until finally we got tired. Until finally we got to the point where we were tired of carrying the load. At that point, most of us developed a new personality. For many of us, we became what we call the lion. The lion began to yell and scream and gripe and carry on, and our anger began to come up. We began to realize that we were angry inside, we were frustrated. And so many of us began to yell and scream. And we began to live our lives in a very angry way. And then sooner or later, as we yelled and screamed and growled, sooner or later we came to the next stage of our life, which each and every one of us someday must come to. And that is the birth of the new child. We come to that stage of serenity and peacefulness. We come to that stage of discovery. We come to that stage where I finally give my little child permission to be born. The difference now is I give the child permission to be born. I give my spirit permission to be born. In me, I begin to experience and develop the little child within, the special little me. So many of us have never taken the time to be able to look at some of the most basic needs of our life. Let's examine them as we go through the fourth step, and let us take the time to look at ourselves in a positive direction. Let's begin with the physical. So many of us have beaten our bodies up. So many of us do not look at our bodies, this beautiful part of us, as very special and very beautiful. Let us inventory in this fourth step our eating habits, the ways in which we nourish our body. When you eat something, when you look at food, do you look at it as something sacred? Have you ever taken a moment before you eat to look at the food and say to that food, are you worthy to enter my body? Are you worthy to become part of me? What is our spiritual attitude towards ourselves? How do we view ourselves? Do we make time to rest ourselves? Do we make time to feel the peacefulness and the relaxation and the gentleness of life? Do we make time to exercise, to allow our body to open up, to allow fresh air to come into it? Do we give ourselves permission to simply play and celebrate and give our body permission to relax? Do we give ourselves permission just to be physically healthy human beings? Inventory the way in which you look at yourself. Inventory your physical self. Also, as we look at the inventory process of the fourth step, we now take an inventory of our emotions and of our feelings. Did we ever realize deep down inside that it's okay to feel? Do we realize over and over again how special and how beautiful it is to give ourselves permission to have feelings? So many of us have denied them for so long. And yet, what a beautiful concept to realize that my feelings are neither right nor wrong. They are just my feelings. I am allowed to feel. I am allowed to experience. I am allowed to be. And it's so beautiful to realize and to validate and to understand that my feelings are mine and they're okay. If I do this, I learn not to be guilty. I learn to realize that I can feel whatever I want to feel. It is such a beautiful experience to develop a healthy concept of yourself, to feel healthy about yourself, and to begin to realize that I can have good, healthy, positive feelings. Also, what I learn is to inventory my spirit, my spirituality, to inventory my uniqueness and my specialness. Do I honor who I am? Do I love myself? Do I respect who I am? Do I basically care for me? Do I look at myself as a unique individual? Do I give myself permission to experience the spontaneous, beautiful part of me? And yet, as I do my inventory, do I give myself permission to see all parts of me, to see every aspect of myself? I have a little analogy that I'd like to share with you today. It's a very special one. And for me, it's a very easy way to basically try to understand the beautiful gift of recovery. What I would like to do is use an analogy by using 4 of the Peanuts comic strips characters. They're very simple and they're very special. What I have learned in my recovery is to take these little characters and meditate on them. Why? Because these little characters are part of a comic strip. They are part of the little child inside of me. The first one I would like you to inventory and meditate on today is that little child deep inside of you called Lucy. Every one of us has a little Lucy inside of us. Every one of us has inside of us that little grouch. Every one of us has inside of us that little insecurity. Every one of us has inside of us that little angry child. And so many of us never give ourselves permission to let it loose. At least Lucy expresses it. Lucy the grouch. On days our days are miserable, do we give ourselves permission to have them? Do we give ourselves permission just to be? You see, inside of us we each have a little Lucy, and each of us has to understand and give ourselves permission to acknowledge that little Lucy and to love her where she's at. We also have inside of us a little Linus. Linus with his security blankets. You know, it's so beautiful to watch Linus because Linus admits that he is insecure. He admits that he needs security blankets. Does it sound familiar? That's us. We have our own insecurities. We have our idiosyncrasies. We have those little things that go on inside of us, even our little skeletons in our closets. Welcome to the human race. Linus teaches us to be human, and yet we all have our dependencies. Again, from Linus we experience this. The other character I asked you to meditate on There's another one of my favorites, and that is good old Charlie Brown. Look at Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown is the perennial victim. Charlie Brown is always beating himself up. He is always looking at what's wrong with him. He is always looking at the negative aspects of himself. Charlie never gives himself permission to be able to experience and to be able to feel. And so many of us have to learn deep down inside of ourselves that it's okay. It's okay to feel. And it's okay sometimes even to beat ourselves up, even though it's not healthy. We still do it. You see, Charlie looks at life through negative eyes. Charlie always sees a problem. And we have to learn that that's part of us. That's part of who we are. You see, recovery and inventory is accepting each and every part of us and embracing it. The last character I want to share with you today is a very special person, and my favorite character, the symbol of recovery, and that is little Snoopy. Snoopy, the hound of heaven. Snoopy, the little gift. Notice that Snoopy is a dog. Notice, as we look at Snoopy, we look at the gift of ourselves. As we look at the aspects of Snoopy, we begin to realize that deep down inside, what is Snoopy? Snoopy is a free, creative, imaginative spirit. Inside of each and every one of us, we have that free, spontaneous little child, that little spirit that's fully alive. Look what Snoopy always does. He's always running up to Lucy, and you'll notice what he does to Lucy. He's always kissing her on the nose. But Snoopy's not dumb. He kisses her and takes off. He detaches with love. And so many times when we experience those negative aspects of our life, we have to learn to love them and detach from them so they can become teachers. Look what Snoopy does to Linus. He's always stealing Linus's security blankets. What does recovery do to us? Recovery many times challenges our security blankets. Very many times recovery basically pulls away that blanket and makes us look at ourselves honestly. Do we like it? No, it's scary, and yet it's beautiful. Look what Snoopy does to Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown is always trying to take Snoopy and put him in obedience school to get him under control. Control is Charlie's issue. What does Snoopy do? Snoopy still drives poor Charlie crazy. He's always running around Charlie. He's always out of control. Charlie can't handle it. We have to learn to loosen up. We have to learn to let go of our control. But above all, we have to learn to release that free spirit, that little kid inside of us. We have to give the little Snoopy inside of us permission to come alive. You see, in the fourth step, we begin to experience a very special process inside of ourselves. We begin to experience the process of freedom, the process of discovery, the process of finding out who we are. Each of us has a history. We have parts of our history. We have to look at them. We have to acknowledge them. We have to begin to see them through positive eyes. And if we give ourselves permission to do a positive inventory, to recreate, to redevelop, then what we are doing is we are inventorying, we are discovering, we are beginning to go into a discovery of what we need and begin to work on our needs. Then we can use our healthy family, we can use the people around us to help us to get those needs met. And as we meet those needs, we then begin to experience the most beautiful part of all recovery, the discovery of the trust issues, the discovery of the open issues inside of us. See, basically, we're scared little children. We're scared to really grow. We're scared to reach out. We're scared to develop our potential. What the inventory step does for us, it says, look at yourself. Realize that inside of you, your higher power, your God, has given you everything that you need in life. Every aspect of self. The higher power has already given to you everything you need for your growth and for your development. We have that potential inside of us. It is our duty and our responsibility to discover it. And discover it slowly. Don't push yourself. Take your time. Remember something else about our inventory process. We will only be able to inventory and look at the things we are ready to inventory. A little bit at a time. Because this program we're talking about today is a 1 day at a time program until 2 days after we are dead. We take our time, we work on it. It's simple and it's basic. We also begin to understand in the inventory process how special this process is. And as we begin to look at our inventory, it's so nice to be able to release and let all of this stuff out of us and begin to put it on paper and begin to give ourselves permission to understand the gift that we have within ourselves as a person. You see, in the inventory step, the 4th step, we actually are giving ourselves permission to begin a very special process called affirmation, to affirm who we are, to look at ourselves in positive directions, to begin to see the beautiful, affirming person within us. What's so special is that as we reconstruct our childhood, as we reconstruct our family, we actually begin now to experience that beautiful concept of a new me. We have said over and over again how special it is to celebrate yourself, to see yourself, and to develop the very special person within you. If you do that, then your potential comes alive and your beauty comes alive. So please, in the 4th step, give yourself permission to inventory the person that you are. Give yourself permission to begin to experience the new person within you. Give yourself permission to begin to look at yourself. Look at every aspect of yourself, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, but especially that little spirit. Remember to free the Snoopy inside of you. Remember to free the little child within. Remember to give yourself permission to begin to experience that little child. If you do, you will experience a complete newness inside of yourself as a person. The 4th step is a beautiful step because this step gives us permission to be able to look at ourselves and gives us permission to be able to begin the growth process inside of us. This step also gives us permission to begin to really explore and develop the person within us. Having now gone through the 4th step and having experienced a discovery of our history and having looked at the potential and the beauty inside of us, we now begin the next stage of our recovery, the next stage of our growth, which is a very powerful and special stage, the 5th step. In this step, we learn to develop inside of ourselves that very beautiful and that very special spirit, the spirit of trust, the spirit of growth. So many of us, as a result of our dysfunctional situations in our life, have learned not to trust. We have learned to basically question everything. We have learned not to look at things through the eyes of faith. We have learned deep down inside to run away from situations. We have learned to look at everything through the eyes of mistrust. And again, it goes back to the fact of our little child. If your little child has felt terror and fear, then basically it will not trust. It will look for the angle. So many of us always look at life from the dark side. And that's why it's so important in this 5th step. And in the wisdom of how this program was put together, they now teach us ways in which we can begin, slowly but surely, to develop the process of trust, the process of beginning to reach out and share ourselves with others. Also, we have to understand that many of us, as a result of our dysfunctional situations, have built deep down inside of ourselves many, many, many secrets, especially family secrets. We have deep inside of us those very many unwritten laws, those unwritten rules that simply say, there are certain things you never talk about. You take that shame and you bury it deep inside of you. In fact, if you look at every one of us in life, no matter who we are, you will see the issue of shame somewhere in there. And so many of us look at ourselves through those eyes. And so many of us do not want to tell or share or look at the things that have happened to us. We don't want to share because we're afraid that people will not like us, that they'll put us down, they will not accept us. That's why in the 5th step, in the infinite wisdom of this program, they teach us to move to 3 levels of sharing. The 5th step reads, to take your inventory and to share it with God, with yourself, and with another human being. Watch the specialness and the beauty of this inventory process. In the 5th step, they say to take our inventory. Take your life. Take your dreams. Take your potential. Take all the things that deep down inside of your little child always wanted. Be able to look at your little child and now be able to name it. Be able to embrace it. And be able to say, this is my little child. And my little child has these needs. My little child is ready now to begin to grow, to begin to discover. And yet the program has taught me over and over again that I need to share and need to be part of others, that I cannot do it alone. And so now in the 5th step, they tell us to take our inventory, take our positive self, take our dreams and share them and celebrate them. First of all, begin by sharing them with God, by sharing them with your higher power. Your higher power is whatever you choose to be yours. What you do now is you take yourself and take your history, every part of it, and you now share it with a power greater than yourself. The program tells us to share it on your knees, to realize that you as a person and as an individual, that you are a living, walking prayer, that you are a gift. What's so beautiful is that every day as we unfold, every day as we live, each and every part of our life is connected to our higher power, is connected to our God. And that's why it's so beautiful to begin to work on our inventory and share our inventory, to be able to say to our higher power, to our higher self, the very special part of us, to be able to say, these are my dreams, these are my needs, these are the things that I need to work on. Help me, guide me, lead me. As you begin to share your inventory with God, you begin to look at yourself as a very special person, and you realize that you basically now learn to communicate and share your needs with the higher person you have within, with your higher self. As each of us begins to experience this beautiful concept, it's almost like spiritually, each of us becomes almost like a living prayer, a living expression. And it's almost like there is an energy and a source we can call upon to help us to touch, to open up, to begin to experience the new dimensions inside of us. So many of us have tried to do this through science and all different types of directions. We have tried to reason it, but now the program tells us, turn it over, release it, let it go, share it. When you learn to share with your higher power, you are learning to go within, and you are learning to center yourself. You are learning to experience how to take the time to communicate, Take the time to experience the beautiful gift of the higher power within you. As you experience that, you will realize that you are connected to a higher source of energy, and as a result, you have great potential and beauty inside of you. It's so beautiful to be able to do that connection and to be able to experience it. And that's why this inventory process is so beautiful, because it teaches us in the fifth step to trust this higher power, to trust our faith, to trust our belief. What is life? Life is simply a beautiful concept of belief. And the more powerful our belief process is, the more powerful we are. And if we give ourselves permission to go inside and experience this, then we experience that uniqueness and that spirit that makes us who we are. The step also tells us to take our inventory and to share it with ourselves. What a beautiful and special experience. Each of us has to learn deep down inside the importance of looking at ourselves and sharing our inventory with our own person. You know what's so beautiful? To be able to read your own history, to be able to acknowledge it, and to be able to embrace it, and to be able to look at yourself and say, this is me. This is who I am. This is the gift of me. So many of us never take the time to look at ourselves. We never take the time to experience who we are. We never take the time to meet ourselves, to build a relationship with ourselves. We never take the time to learn to love ourselves. We are so busy looking for it in other people. In the fifth step, I take the time to begin to trust myself. So many of us do not trust ourselves. We have to learn how to do it. I must now begin to trust my talents, my integrity. I must now begin to trust my potential, my personhood. And as I learn to build a very special sense of trust, I am now willing to share what's inside of me with myself. And no longer do I look at all this stuff inside of me as something terrible, as something that hurts, but I look at it as something I can learn more about myself, so I can grow, so I can experience the gift of who I am. This whole concept of recovery is so beautiful and it's so special, and it makes so much sense. Each of us must give ourselves permission to be able to look and own and express and be part of our history. You know, the one thing the inventory process has taught me, and I am extremely grateful for it today, it has taught me not to run away from who I am, but to be able to look at myself and say, this is me. Hi, how are you? Glad to meet you. You know, there's an old saying that we have to live with each other every day, so we might as well fall in love with each other, with ourselves. And that's a beautiful part of what life is. It's extremely important to begin to understand how special it is to love yourself, how special it is to build a relationship with yourself. And if anyone else has to know you, it's so important that you know you. And so take the time to read your inventory. Take the time to look at it. Take the time to nurture it, just to savor it, to begin to experience it. Take the time to just let it sink in, and let you begin to realize how each phase, each concept of your life, each direction brings you to where you are today. People are always telling me, don't you wish you could go back and start all over again? And my answer is real simple. No, I don't want to go back. I like where I am today. I like my life. I like the gift of myself in the present moment. I do not want to go back except to be able to review, talk about my history, and be able to share it. You see, today I can go back now and I can tell people who I am. I can tell people what I'm all about. I can tell people what life means to me. I can share with people my beliefs. I can share my patterns. I can share every concept, every aspect of my life, because I am comfortable with it today. Because today I believe in me. And that process is still growing. And I hope and pray that someday that potential and that process inside of me will become even stronger. And my prayer is that as I grow and as I experience things in life, my trust levels will grow also. In the fifth step, they also tell us as we build this very special relationship with ourselves, they also know the wisdom of who we are. So in the fifth step, they tell us to share our inventory and to share our life with another human being. What that means is, and it's scary, is to take who I am, take every part of me, take my secrets, take every concept of myself, and now to give myself permission to share it with other human beings, with another person. See, one of the things that we have done all of our life, especially as codependents, especially because of our dysfunctionalities, we have done a lot of self-disclosure. So many times because we feel guilty, and so many times because we look at ourselves in a negative way. We always want somebody else to affirm us. We always want somebody else to tell us that we're okay. We're always looking for it in other directions. Now in the fifth step, we actually learn to affirm ourselves. In doing so, we can now reach out and share that person and share who we are with other people. The program tells us in a very beautiful way to protect yourself. The program tells us to look at ourselves and begin to realize that as you share yourself, don't share yourself just with anyone. Share yourself with people that will love you unconditionally. Share yourself with people that you feel safe with. Share yourself with people that will accept you as you are. Share yourself with people that will not judge you, but will love you enough to be honest and tell you the truth. Share yourself with people who are a very special part of you. And so as you begin this sharing process and this trusting process, a little bit at a time, what you will now do is you will begin the process of sharing, the process of actually reaching out, the process of actually experiencing and being part of other people. As you do this, you will now begin to experience that beautiful concept of being at peace with yourself on the inside. As you begin to experience this, you will open up the little child inside of you. What's so beautiful is you will now be able to say to people, be part of me. Let me share myself with you. You know how beautiful it is to share things, not to keep them inside anymore, but to let people be part of who you are. It teaches me that I am part of everyone else, but it also teaches me that I can build trust levels. I can build friendships, that sooner or later I can talk about the things that are inside of me. I guess one of the most special things I ever experienced in my own life in going to meetings is that when you go to meetings, what you do is you actually experience other people when they tell their story, who literally are telling your story. And for the first time you find out as you share your inventory, you find out that you are not the only one that feels the way you feel. You are not the only one that has experienced what you have experienced. You are not the only one who has gone through the traumas you've gone through. You're not the only one that has these desires and these wants and these needs. It's so beautiful to realize that other people feel and experience the same things that I do. It's such a beautiful and such a special concept of self to begin to experience that. As we begin to do this, we now begin to experience the growth process inside of us. Also, as we share, we begin to feel better. We begin to open up. So many of us carry so much inside of us, and now we release the burden. We let it out. We also learn in the fifth step, a very beautiful and special process. We learn not to give anything away. And one thing we have to learn about ourselves, in this program we are learning and developing a very special us. So no more will I give myself away. I will share myself. I will share the aspects of me, but I'm not going to give me away. Because if I give myself away, I don't have me. and I am now special. In this process also, I now begin to realize, as a result of trusting, that I can begin to seek affirmations, seek positive people, seek to be affirmed. We learn in the program of recovery through the 4th and through the 5th step, we learn to affirm ourselves. We learn the affirmation process. You see, all of us, as a result of our family structures, as a result of our family background, all of us have developed in our life what I call negative rules, negative concepts. We learn these from our families, from our environments. And now, all of a sudden, we have to begin to develop and work on positive concepts of ourself. We have to begin to realize how special and beautiful it is to begin to open up and to begin to experience the positive, beautiful person inside of us. As we begin to experience that, all of a sudden we begin to experience change. We begin to experience the beauty of our personhood. What's so beautiful about that concept is that I now learn how to affirm myself, how to see myself in positive eyes, in positive directions. And the affirmation process is so special and so beautiful. What I learned in this program as I learned to affirm is, in the 5th step, I have learned to affirm myself with my God. I have learned to affirm myself in faith. What that means is I have built a positive relationship with me by seeing the God that works through me. Also in the 5th step, I have begun to affirm myself. Let me give you some concrete and simple ways of doing this. For example, whenever you do an affirmation or an affirming process of yourself, we always tell you to begin an affirmation by always making a positive statement about yourself. I'll give you an example. In my inventory and in my life, I have realized over and over again that one of my major decisions of life was always my guilt. My guilt haunted me as a child. It tore me to shreds. My guilt and decisions that I made always ripped me apart. What I have learned in recovery is that I am innocent, that I am an innocent, special little child. And today I can affirm myself that I am innocent, and I can work on the sense of my innocence, and I can work on my growth. You see, in this positive concept of myself, I can now begin to realize how special and beautiful that I am. And so we learn to do affirmations. See, again, one thing you have to understand too is that we have looked at ourselves negatively for so long, they become a normal in our life. Now in the 5th step, I realize I can create a new normal, a positive normal. There are some ways of doing affirmations and some very special ways, and I'll share some of them with you. In the affirmation process, one of the things that you can do, and I always tell codependents to do this, is when you're home in your house, find yourself a full-length mirror. And when you stand in front of the mirror, try this. Every night before you go to bed, stand in front of a full-length mirror and look at yourself. And realize that you're somebody very special. Then look at yourself and out loud, say to yourself as you stare into your eyes, I love you, you are special, you are beautiful. And then walk up to the mirror and kiss yourself. So many of us are scared of that. We are scared to give ourselves a kiss. We are scared to look at ourselves and say all those beautiful, positive things about ourselves. And believe me, when you first start doing it, you'll have a hard time with it because it'll seem awkward and it'll seem strange. But you know what's so special about it? And I learned this from the AA program. There's a saying in AA, fake it till you make it. And it's a beautiful statement. What that means is make believe that you believe all these positive and beautiful statements about yourself. And if you make believe it in the beginning, eventually you will believe it. What they tell us to do is to repeat it over and over and over again and do it on a constant basis. They also tell you, if you want to create in your house what we call an affirmation wall. An affirmation wall is a wall in which you will put all types of posters, all types of sayings, all types of positive things about yourself. We call it our selfish wall. On that wall, I will make all statements. I will write them out so I can always look at them and see all the beautiful things that are said about me. Another way of doing affirmations, which is very simple, is to make for yourself what we call affirmation crib cards. What affirmation crib cards are, they are simply little cards in which you write your affirmations. You carry them in the glove compartment of your car, carry them in your briefcase or in your pocketbook. If you get stuck in a traffic jam, you take out your affirmation cards and you read them. And you just simply do affirmations. You repeat them over and over and over again. So eventually they become part of you. When you're in a negative situation, repeat them. One of the best ways of doing affirmations, in a very beautiful way, to build this trust level in yourself and then eventually in others, is to do an affirmation tape. Take a blank tape and a tape recorder, and then every day read into the tape recorder positive, beautiful statements about yourself. Also, as you read them, repeat them 8 or 9 times. Do them over and over again. What you will realize is that very basically you are affirming yourself. When you fill the tape, and if you want to be real creative, you can put music in the background. When you fill the tape, then every night for 30 consecutive days, play the tape every night before you go to sleep. In fact, fall asleep listening to it. If you have one of those auto-reverse tape recorders, you can play it all night long. What you are doing is you are simply hearing your own voice telling you how special and how beautiful you are. And eventually you will see the change in the process take place inside of you. You see, the 5th step is all about developing this positive trust level inside of ourselves. And the more we learn to trust ourselves, the more we learn to affirm ourselves, the more each of us will learn to release and let go, the more each of us will learn the beautiful gift of who we are. We will learn to build trust levels. We will learn to begin to experience in those trust levels our connection to God, to ourself, and to others. And a little bit at a time, we begin to meet our needs. In our families and in our structures, we now begin to meet our needs. We begin to experience building trust. And all of a sudden, my fears and my guilts and things inside of me begin to fade away. These 2 steps are beautiful steps. They teach us self-knowledge. They teach us trust. As I learn to trust, as I learn, I am now ready to begin the next stage of my growth. I am now ready to begin to grieve, to release, and to let go.